There's an experiment that physicists know well, but that very few people have connected to the psychology of manifestation. Take a magnetized needle and slowly bring it close to a metal object. It works. The needle is attracted. But now clench the needle in your fist, with force, with urgency, as if you were afraid of losing it. Then bring it close again. Nothing happens. The magnetic field doesn't disappear, but the physical pressure distorts it, disperses it, and renders it ineffective. Obsessive desire works exactly like this. It doesn't block your energy because you're unworthy of what you want. It blocks it because the way you want it creates a field of interference. And that field prevents anything from reaching you. This is the paradox that almost no one has ever really explained to you. They haven't told you that the problem isn't wanting. The problem is the quality of the desire. There's a huge difference between wanting something and clinging to it as if your survival depended on it. And that difference isn't philosophical. It's physiological. It's happening in your body right now as you breathe. And the fact is, no one has taught you how to desire in a healthy way. They taught you urgency. They taught you that need is synonymous with motivation. They told you that wanting something intensely enough brings it closer. But that's not intensity. It's anxiety with a different label, and anxiety, as you know, doesn't build anything solid. There's a specific term in neurobiology to describe this state. It's called the perceived threat response. When your brain interprets the lack of something as a threat to your identity, it activates the hypothalamic-pituitary-adrenal axis. It releases cortisol. It narrows your field of vision. It shuts down the connections between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. In simple terms, the part of the brain that's supposed to find creative solutions goes offline, and you get trapped in a self-perpetuating loop of scarcity. No guru tells you this outright. I'm telling you now. The mechanism is brutal in its simplicity. Every time you feel you need something to feel whole, your brain registers its absence as a danger. It doesn't matter if it's a relationship, money, or recognition, and a brain in danger mode cannot receive. It can only defend itself. It can only build walls, not bridges. Here's the part that changes everything. Vadim Zeland, the Russian writer who developed the theory of reality transurfing, describes this phenomenon with a specific term, excessive importance. When you attach disproportionate weight to something, you create an imbalance in the energy field surrounding you, and the field responds by seeking balance. It generates obstacles that are exactly proportional to the importance you've assigned to the object of your desire. It's not punishment, it's physics. The system always seeks balance. Think about the last time you desperately wanted something: a person, a job, an opportunity. Do you remember that tightening sensation in your chest? That constant vigilance, that checking your phone over and over, that obsessive mulling over the possibilities? In that moment, you weren't attracting anything. You were building an invisible barrier around yourself, made of fear disguised as desire. And here comes the uncomfortable part. The part that few people really want to hear. Detachment is not indifference. It's not giving up what you want. It's not the resignation of the defeated. Detachment is the ability to hold onto a preference without that preference holding onto you. The Roman Stoics had a specific term for this distinction. The difference between epithumia, the anxious, visceral, desperate craving, and orexis, the rational, luminous, direct preference. Epictetus explained it this way: you can prefer health to illness, but if your peace depends on the outcome, you're already in chains. Not chains imposed from the outside. Chains created by your own mind. This is the teaching that Western traditions have buried under centuries of an ethics of urgency. Necessity renders you powerless. Light desire, the kind that arises from abundance, not from lack, is the only kind of energy that can actually build something lasting. But why does it work this way? What is the real, concrete, verifiable mechanism? When you lower your perceived threat level, the parasympathetic nervous system takes over. Cortisol levels drop. The prefrontal cortex fully reactivates. And here something extraordinary happens. The brain returns to broad processing mode. It begins to notice connections that were previously invisible, opportunities that were always there, but which the narrow field of fear prevented you from seeing. You're not pulling things out of thin air, you're simply reopening the perception that you yourself had closed off. That's why people find jobs when they stop searching desperately. That's why relationships happen when someone no longer needs one to feel complete. It's not magic. It's neurobiology applied to everyday life. The paradox is that the answer comes when you stop treating it as a matter of life and death, because only then can your cognitive system return to functioning at its highest level. Observe how this manifests in concrete behaviors. A person in a state of obsessive longing constantly talks about the desired object. They bring it up in every conversation. They compare it, evaluate it, measure it. Every interaction unconsciously becomes a tool to get closer to what's missing. Others sense this. They pull away. Not because they're cruel, because desperate need is a frequency that the human nervous system recognizes as a sign of instability. And instability isn't attractive. It isolates. The same thing happens with money, with career opportunities, with health. The tighter you clench your fist, the more the field distorts. Now I'll tell you the thing no one wants to admit. Most people don't want to let go of their obsessive desire, because that desire has become their identity. Who would I be without this obsession with what's missing? The void is more frightening than the absence of the desired object. And so they keep clenching their fist, distorting the field, wondering why nothing works. And with each passing day, the fist clenches a little tighter. Not because they're weak, but because no one ever showed them that there was an alternative to need, that it was possible to desire without being consumed by the act of desiring. Here's the real test. Can you think about what you want without your emotional well-being suffering? Can you visualize that desired situation with the same lightheartedness with which you imagine eating something delicious tomorrow night? Preference, not survival. Pleasure, not redemption. If you still feel that tightness, that tension, that sense that life isn't whole, you haven't yet learned to desire as an adult. Adult desire isn't lukewarm. It isn't passive. It isn't resignation. It's intense, clear, and purposeful. But it's rooted in the awareness that you're already whole, that whatever comes adds to something that already exists. It doesn't fill a void. Buddhist traditions call this quality upekkha, equanimity, not emotional detachment, full presence without attachment to the outcome. Zen masters say, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. The difference isn't in the action, it's in the quality of the being performing the action. So how do you actually practice this? When you notice a feeling of lack, that voice saying you're not whole without something, stop. Don't suppress it. Observe it as you would observe a passing cloud. Then ask yourself this question. Does this feeling belong to what I truly want? Or does it belong to a story about myself that I've decided to believe is true? Almost always, you'll discover that the obsessive desire isn't about the desired object. It's about a wound you haven't yet faced. Work on that wound, not on the desire, because when that belief dissolves, when you no longer need that thing to feel worthy, capable, loved, or safe, something strange happens. What you wanted begins to arrive, or something better arrives, or you realize you never really needed it in the first place. In any case, you are free. And freedom is the only state from which you can create something real and lasting. There's a fundamental difference between what you build when you're at peace and what you build when you're in need. Things born of need carry the imprint of need. They must be constantly protected, defended, controlled. Things born of fullness have a different kind of stability. Not because the outside world has changed, it's because you've changed. Keep your hand open, not clenched into a fist. A clenched hand can't grasp anything. An open hand can receive everything. If this resonated with something deep within you, share it with those close to you. Write to me in the comments. What are you holding on to tightly right now that perhaps you should learn to hold with an open hand? Now you know why obsessive desire doesn't attract. It repels. But dismantling that mechanism from within, reprogramming your mind to shift from craving to authentic creative power, requires a precise system, applied day by day. That's exactly what I've created. A 21-day protocol to reprogram your subconscious and learn to manifest from a place of abundance rather than lack. It's called the Occult Protocol. You'll find it in the description.